Hey, how you doing today? This is the Circuit Rider, and we're here with another program on I'm Just Wondering. And today we're going to face another one of those information systems that is invading our world today. And we're going to talk about a subject called Dataism, big data, artificial intelligence, supercomputing, mathematical equations, algorithms. All these things play into Dataism. This is a term that's come into vogue today, particularly in the last few years. And a lot of it has to do with a book by Uval Noah Harari. And I hope I pronounced his name correctly. A book that came out in 2016 called Homo Deus. And in that book, Harari dealt with this medium called Dataism. And he puts forth the premise in this book, and I have to say that we're beginning to live that premise now. And that premise is that information flow is a supreme value and a system that will make all our decisions for us in the future. We're talking about information and knowledge. It's being deemed by Harari and others as the new religion, a worship of information as the supreme factor in all our universe. And this scenario sets forth the premise that humankind, is just one source of information, that we are an algorithm within ourselves, and that we choose through that algorithm to interpret information, and that we are only one source of information in the universe. Big data is being worshipped now and will be worshipped more in the future until the Lord returns. It's a merger of computing power and accumulation of information. A new end time scenario, big data. Will it enhance humankind, or will it destroy humankind? In one of the scenarios that I read, because of biometrics, we've got systems now that monitor our biosystem. We monitor our bloodstream to keep up with our glucose, particularly if we're diabetic. And it's not too far-fetched to think that a system would come into being, that come into play, that would monitor our bloodstream constantly for any kind of viruses that would invade the body. Under that scenario, let's say that there was enough information being gathered and enough of the biosystem being monitored that the Zika virus, in the case of this scenario that I read on the internet, or the COVID, or some other virus, the bird flu, would be flagged in a certain region. Let's say that the southwestern United States begin to develop one of these viruses, and it was flowing in the bloodstreams and being monitored, and that monitoring was sufficient in size to where it could, the algorithms could say, okay, these zip codes in the southwest are where we're seeing the predominant virus infecting the human body. And so the algorithm would put into play a scenario where AI would use 3D printing to create vaccines. Drones would deliver those vaccines to the door of all of those individuals who were threatened, and you would be given instructions to take that vaccine and how to take it. That's one scenario I read on the internet. Now, one thing I want to add to that was not developed in this scenario was this: what if if the system is sophisticated enough to monitor that kind of information? It's probably sophisticated enough to decide whether or not you took the jab, whether you took the vaccine. If that's the case, would you be penalized if you didn't? We're already seeing systems in China for social scoring based on how people react to certain things. Now, supposedly it was set into play to capture jaywalkers, people that were crossing the street illegally in China. But the reality is that there's a monitoring system there that has been developed by the Chinese, and it will punish certain people who act certain ways, and it will reward people who act in the ways that the government wants them to act. So the new master of the world under these scenarios will be algorithms, the worship of data. Wired magazine did an interview in September the 1st of 2016 with Harari to review his book. The warning, though, about all of this came 535 years before Jesus Christ walked this earth. The warning came in the book of Daniel in a prophecy, and in Daniel chapter 12, in the last part of chapter 12, and it reads this way in the King James Bible: "But thou, O Daniel, shut up the words, seal the book, even to the time of the end. Many shall run to and fro, and knowledge shall be increased." In other words, in the end of time, as mankind would know it, people will be running to and fro upon the earth seeking more knowledge. Boy, if that isn't what we live in today, I don't know what is. So the human species, according to some of the scenarios in this book, is just one of the single processing systems that we have. And human beings have an algorithm according to this scenario. And that algorithm allows them to interpret things and to make decisions upon those interpretations. And if the human species is only one source of information, as this book may suggest, and there are many other sources in the universe, then when all these sources are collected, and if they're processed in a certain way, which is what an algorithm does, it is machine learning at this point, generative AI. Algorithms are being used to teach machines how to interpret information. And if that continues to be the case, they're looking for a point where artificial intelligence may reach a level of artificial general intelligence and think like the human brain thinks. Well, maybe so and maybe no. I don't know that any machine is going to be able to do that and have some of the things that we've talked about before about artificial intelligence. At this point, we're dealing with an AI that doesn't have any problem with distributing false information and fake news. If we become dependent upon information technology and AI, and we become dependent upon that for all the source of our information, what happens if that information is flawed, and what kind of impact will that have on the human race? That's the dilemma that we're faced with today. Well, you collect the data, You build the machine and train it to interpret the data. You use that interpretation to make decisions for everything. A system that will ultimately make decisions for us in the future. Will humankind submit to that kind of power? We have in the past. I just recently saw an excerpt about how Hitler came to power. And obviously they used information to great advantage and mesmerize or hypnotize a whole nation. Well, our civilization is there today. In the book Homo Deus in 2016 by Uval Harari has put forth this scenario, and we're living in the midst of it now. Connectivity. Connect all knowledge. Solve all problems. Not unlike ancient Babylon, which in Genesis chapter 10 and chapter 11 came to a place where it wanted to build a city and a tower to heaven. And it was seeking the knowledge of gods or of the gods. And God came down in Genesis 11, confused the language and scattered the people. And we have people scattered across the earth with many different languages. Daniel chapter 9 and verse 24 in his prophecy talks about the end time. When would it come? And it's told that there's a formula that's given, a mathematical formula, the 70 weeks of Daniel's prophecy. And I don't have time to get into that today. But the purpose, there are 6 purposes in Daniel 9:24, and the 2 that we'll focus on today is that the end time is set up to bring in everlasting righteousness. In other words, God's going to instill and set up his kingdom here upon planet Earth and to anoint the most holy. This is how it will end, not with a machine that interprets all knowledge, but it will end with a Savior who comes and delivers this world. Jesus Christ is the way, the truth, and the life. And whosoever believeth in him should not perish, but have everlasting life. Will civilization come to fall at the feet of knowledge? I don't doubt that that's the road that we're on. Will human will yield to information as the way that behavior is formed? And will Dataism destroy or enhance humankind? Stay tuned. Those things are yet to be seen, but we know at the end there's a God who is a deliverer, who is a Savior, who will come with his everlasting kingdom. If I were you, I'd be looking for that. It certainly must not be long, because these situations and scenarios, according to the Bible, are scenarios that have been reserved to the end of time. We don't have to go into, we don't have time to go into some of the other scenarios of the last days, but rioting and evil and killings and all of these things are projected as some of the woes that we will face